This is Michael Van Hoosen, and this is a video demo of the building and installation of a home theater PC running Windows 7 with Windows Media Center and a Ceton Infinifor TV card. So, let's take a look at the case. This is a Foxconn case, and let's open it up here. This is the back side, this is the front side. Let's turn it around. Now, this case has already gotten a power supply built in, a 300-watt power supply. So you've got all of your wires running out here. You've got the main power to the motherboard here. You've got all your connectors, power connectors for your hard drives here, your SATA hard drive. And this goes to the audio, goes up here. And we can actually, these little black switches in here, we can take out the cover of this to reveal some more wires. Now we've got the main. Let's see. This goes right into your motherboard, and you've got your power button. This is what makes the power switch work. Your LEDs here. All of this has to plug into the motherboard to make it work. So now that we've had an overview of the case, let's take a look at our motherboard and processor. Alright, now we've got our motherboard and processor out, so let's take these out of the bag. Now, all of the products you see here today have been ordered off newegg.com, one of the greatest sites for building your own computer. Now here we have some Munchkin RAM that I've actually installed, but what we want to do is to install it, you just click it out and you put it in, and you have to make sure that these match up. So you push it down and they click in, and then click, and now you've got, this is an 8 GB of RAM. So we've got the processor here. This is the processor and heatsink. The processor you can't see right now, but it's under here, and the heatsink is attached to it. This is an AMD quad-core processor, one of the best, and I had to match. This is an AM2 motherboard, a micro ATX motherboard. The micro ATX matches with the screws here on this case, and the AM2 matches with the socket on this motherboard. So now we're going to install and screw in the motherboard like this into the case. Alright, so what we're going to do now is install the motherboard in the case. Now, one of the most important things is that you get all of these wires outside of the case, because if they're inside like this and you put the motherboard down, you won't be able to plug in your fan once it's screwed in. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but there are all these little spacers, and these are some of the most important things in this case. Now, it's very important that the metal on the back of the motherboard does not touch the metal of the case, because if it does, it will short out your motherboard and you will be left with nothing. So, let's go ahead and align the screws. We want to make sure that we place this in very carefully, as it is very fragile. And let's see. Got to make sure that our ports here line up. And there we are. So now we can screw everything in. We've got our motherboard installed here, and I brought out the diagram so we can take a look at exactly what everything does here. So here are our RAM slots. As I showed you before, the RAM has already been installed. Our main power, which is right here, this is from the power supply. We have got all our out connectors, our DVI, HDMI, VGA, Ethernet, all sorts of different stuff. We've got PCI connectors to connect maybe a phone cord or video card or whatever. And we've got a PCI X16, which we're actually going to connect our Ceton Infinifor TV card to later. Here are our SATA ports and an IDE slot, kind of for old. Before they had SATA, they had IDE, and that was old. So for certain old disk drives or old CD players, you can plug it in there. But for most, we're going to use SATA, which is new, serial ATA. And that's pretty much a great diagram. So now let's go forward and... Alright, now let's get plugging some things in. Here is our main power cord. So let's plug this in. This goes into this white switch here. Right in there. There we go. So this is also another power slot, and that needs to go back here and here, and this powers up some of the other things on the board. Now here, these go to the hard drives, so we don't really need those yet. The one important thing is this is our CPU fan, and I notice it's got 4 little notches here, so it needs to go over here where there are 4 little notches here. So let's plug that in as well. Alright, and here is our other fan. Now this fan is pretty important, it just keeps the system nice and cool, and that goes over here somewhere. Here it is. And we're going to plug that in. Notice this has 3, and this has 3 here, and that's how you can tell the difference between the two. We will also take, here's some audio stuff in USB. Now these are for the front of the case. Let's unravel everything. Now this on it says HD audio, so we're going to try to match that over here with, it says audio 1. But what you see here is one of the pins is missing, so you have to match that with a pin that is missing on here, one of the slots. We're going to plug that in. Now that's plugged in. Let's take our next cord, which is USB. So over here we have got USB 1, and we're gonna again look for the one that doesn't have the hole, and we're gonna match it to the one that doesn't have the hole here. So let's plug that in as well. And now that is plugged in and ready to go. Now let's take a look here. This is probably the hardest part. You've got plus LED, reset switch, power switch, and hard drive switch. Now on your motherboard, you're going to look because it's going to tell you here. It's going to say, usually it says, oh, I just finished inputting in our power LED lights, our HD DVD, our hard drive DVD lights, and our power switch and reset switch. You have to make sure they go into the correct pins according to your motherboard manual. Now I'd like to point out here this RAM, this is 8 gigabytes of Munchkin RAM. It's DDR3 RAM that's specific to this motherboard. So it'll say in your motherboard specifications whether you're DDR, DDR2, or DDR3 RAM. Now let's take a look. Now this is an AMD quad-core processor, and it did come with the heatsink already attached, as most processors do. Some motherboards actually come with the processor and heatsink attached if you buy them as a bundle. But I had to attach it myself, which is as simple as placing it down and snapping this in. Now I'd like to go and install the DVD drive. This is 20 bucks, DVD rewritable, just really to install Windows 7. Other than that, a DVD drive is pretty much useless these days. So we're going to go and slide it in. Here we go. And now, here is our power cord. Right there. So we got to make sure we can plug that in here. I'm actually going to use this one. I'd like to talk about this cable here. It is a SATA cable, also known as serial ATA. It is the successor to the IDE cord, and it is the data connection between your hard drive and your motherboard. Now in here, in my computer here, I have 2 different hard drives. A 2 terabyte drive that is a normal hard drive, and a 32 gigabyte SSD. Now the main difference between the SSD and your standard drive is, then an SSD loads a lot quicker because it's flash-based memory rather than this, which has this drive that spins, and is a lot slower. This 2 terabyte drive will mainly be used to store recordings, and this one it will be used to store Windows and make everything much quicker. Now my motherboard, BioStar, only included 2 of these SATA cables. Now I needed 3, so you must make sure that you go out and get a third if you have a DVD drive and 2 separate hard drives in. And the other thing that's important is this back plate here. I forgot to mention that you have to install it before you install your motherboard, or else you will have to unscrew your motherboard, shift it back to get this correctly installed. Now let's move on to installing the Ceton Infinite 4 TV card. Here is our Ceton Infinite 4 TV card. This is a great product. What actually is inside it is 4 different TV tuners, meaning that you can watch and record 4 different shows at once, or watch or record 4 different shows at once. Now on the back here you'll see this is the spot where your cable card goes in. Now it needs to use a multi-stream card because it has 4 different sources into this one card, so it needs a multi-stream card. And this is your coax in. This is a pretty neat little coax cable. This side simply slides in here, snaps in, and goes out to your regular coax in, and you just plug in your regular coax. And the cable card, basically its job is to decrypt your cable company's signal so that this card can get all of the programs that you subscribe to. Installing the Ceton Infinite TV 4 TV card. So you have to make sure it goes into a PCI slot. Any PCIe slot, will work. So you want to lift it down into your computer and make sure that it aligns with your current lining to make sure that it goes right in there, just like that, and make sure that no other cables are in the way. You want to be sure that you secure your Ceton Infinite 4 TV card in the back of your case so that it does not come loose. Now it's time to start up your computer. So I'm starting it up the first time with the doors still off, so I can see that no wires are in the way of my CPU and that everything's working well. So we're going to start by plugging in the internet. The internet's important. If you do install Windows at this time, it will want to check your product key online. A USB mouse, or this motherboard is really nice because it includes a PS2 connection for the keyboard. So I will be using that, but you can also use a USB. You connect the VGA cord to a monitor. Any monitor will work as long as it displays a picture. So now, let's get that plugged in. Our last and final thing to plug in is the power cord, and we'll flip the switch. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Press the power button and your computer should start up. Let's see if we see anything on the screen. It probably will take it a little bit the first time. See, there's a bunch of flashing lights in there, and here we go. It's finding all of our devices, our hard disks and our USB controllers. It's finding SATA 2, SATA 3, which are our hard drives. Sees one mouse. Sees our 8 gigabytes of memory, says it's okay. Now, since this is the first time we're ever starting up this motherboard, it's expected that this will take a fair amount of time. Now, the next thing we have to do is install Windows 7. Windows is now loading files. Finally, Windows is starting up and is almost ready for installation.